So the next speaker is Ricardo Gutiérrez Aguilar from Alcalá de Henares University. Ricardo is an assistant professor and researcher in philosophy at the History and Philosophy Department. He holds a PhD in UNED in Spain, by UNED in Spain, and is doctor in philosophy at the Technical University in Berlin. He was a he is or was a pre-doctoral fellow at the National Spanish Research Council, and was awarded the Marie Curie Early Stage Award. His research focuses mainly on exemplar narratives and the critique of values encrypted in public discourse and history. And among his most recent publications are his, I can't pronounce it, I'm sorry, Duda y legado en la filosofía de la historia de Schiller. There's an English translation I see now, so it is Debt and Legacy in Schiller's Philosophy of History. And he published a multidisciplinary volume on empathy as well. So apologies again for butchering these complex names for me. Very much looking forward to your presentation, and feel free to share your screen or take over.
Okay. Yes. Well, first of all, I would like to get like a leap 30 years ago with the Neil Postman work on amusement. His book, well, like 30 years ago, was a hit and provides a fine depiction of what can be already and nowadays be called a show business society. Amusing ourselves to death, the title of the book just gives away what he's meaning in this society where to show is to produce. That means to put forward something, to expose something. Such a society, just the one we live in, could be profiled in his own words, I quote, as today, paying special attention to news scrolls and corner of the screen promos, and reality shows and infomercials and 900 channels as norm, TV no longer dominates the media landscape. Screen time also means hours spent in front of the computer, video monitor, cell phone, and handheld. Multitasking is a standard. Communities have been replaced by demographics. Silence has been replaced by background noise. I wanted to put this quote as my first slide, as we will see at the end, by the end of the presentation, that a lot of Han's concepts can be gathered from this quote. Just one example, the so-called modern binge watching, this fact of gluttonous act of devouring episode after episode of our favorite TV show, is the perfect salient feature of that landscape, one in which satisfaction and happiness become confusingly entangled. And I would like to reveal 3 conceptual confusions pointed by Han as well in the Burnout Society in 2010. The first conceptual confusion is about happiness versus satisfaction, meaning by satisfaction also entertainment, amusement. The second one is a conceptual confusion between wonder and amazement, meaning by amazement, in this case, astonishment, sublime, or as Joao before me has said, this type of sense of warning, of alert that we will see in my presentation. Well, I will repeat the idea that Joao has presented us on this animal behavior, this animal attention behavior. And the third one, and last but not least, is the difference between deep boredom that is present in the 10 book of Han, and a shallow boredom is a type of a superficial, shallow, hollow boredom that is at large in our present society. Okay, so first of all, I would like to present what for Han is the motto, like the illustration, our emblem of this society. And this emblem is the myth of Prometheus, the Titan. Okay, we are living in a society of performance, and Prometheus would be the perfect illustration of this sacred creed in efficiency and endless activity. What counts nowadays is time, that becomes profit, that becomes success, in an absolute sense. This Titan being punished for his hybris, that means his arrogance in endeavoring an endless activity, is tortured by an eagle that devours his liver once and again, in an endless cycle. Also, is nothing, says Han, but the double-sided image of the late modern subject. That means we are at the same time Prometheus and the eagle. The late modern subject, gorged, full of information, of representations, of experience in a general sense, is always fed up by means of a wicked consumption that pays its only tribute to accumulation and plenty. That means the only end, the only mean that is profitable is that which leads to a more plentiful activity or plenty in general. It's a matter of quantity. The ever-growing liver, this liver that regenerates, is the representation of weary, worn, the liver worn by unhinged consumption. And well, if we have like a blink on Hippocrates' theory of the human humors, we know that liver is associated with tiredness, exhaustion, tiredness. Well, this liver regenerated only to be worth of the occasion to be worn again and again. Not surprisingly, the character of the society can be deemed so from its clinical profile, says Han. And what's the clinical profile of our society, of this society of the performance? Well, Han points out that the eminently psychic trait of the six that beset our communities is by all means quite illustrative. We have depression, we have ADHD, the attention deficit or hyperactivity disorder. We have the BPD, borderline personality disorder, occupational, the burnout syndrome, eating disorders, sorry for the mistake there, like obesity, anorexia, bulimia, and of course, maybe the king, stress. All of them are like profiles, depictions of what I have called hyperactivity, endless activity. Han presents the idea that unlike the old compulsory disciplinary society of the 19th and the 20th century, we exert now both as masters and slaves. We are our own masters, but at the same time, we are our own slave. Present society has made an inner case for the censorship. We have an inner censorship of the norm and the obligation. Where well-being and public health are norms, are of the most importance in our societies, and scarcity and limitation are but a second-tier problem, I would say, in the first world. we have another type of problems, as what we have seen in the former slide, that are illnesses threatening our communities, not with the threat of a foreign invader, but as heralds for the miasmatic theory of disease, but a disease that is already in us. They are in fact the conundrum superabundance that plenty displays. All our sickness bind to disorder. I mean, all the sicknesses, all the diseases that I have listed before are categorized as disorders. First of all, as I have said in the first slide, we have a problem with gratification, with satisfaction, a problem on positivity. Han says this is the direct consequence of the empire of the most misunderstood modal verb. We are hostages of the verb kann, können. And the verb kann, können, is free of any regulation, but its content is void. At the same time, its hollow nature poses an overwhelming defiance. As we can everything, or as we can as a capacity, können is a slippery slope to should and must, dürfen and müssen. The figure of the viewer dozing in front of the TV screen is substituted, firstly, by the sleepwalker. Well, the sleepwalker is not a figure of Han, but it's like an in-between figure to the figure that appears in Han's work. In this case, the zombie. The zombie, also in Han's words, the Muselmänner, the Musselmen of the Nazi concentration camps, states for the, I would say, for the sketch of the late modern subject we all are when we are engaged in this hyperactivity, endless cycle of activity without an end, without a certain end. This is the vagary of the Muslim. There is an animal regression in this, says Han, and well, was stated before by Joao. Han holds true that the taming of attention nowadays has something barbaric in it. It has something for which survival concerns are of the utmost importance. Amazement, astonishment, surprise are the representative epitomes of warning and alert. Even in animals, animals are prone to be surprised, amazed, astonished as to their problematic relation with what is unexpected. Okay, not knowing what is to come, and probably what is to come is a type of danger. Hyperactivity entails, in this sense, for Han, hyperattention. We are sick of hyperattention, and attention held hostage, as I said, of immediate gratification. Thus, the constant change in focus that entails hyperattention, you are jumping between perceptions, between representations that call for your interest, for your perceptive interest, demands to our perceptive freedom, clearly represented by the praises last generations give to multitasking, speaks eloquently of the fundamentals of perceptual caring worth today. I mean, this perceptive freedom is put in danger by the, I would say, by the plight of the multitasking praise today as a highly valued capacity for the late modern subject. I quote Han, but a purely hectic rush produces nothing new. It reproduces and accelerates what is already available. I end the quote. Perceptual agitation per se only grants the uneasy promise of more of the same. Han talks in a Heideggerian sense of the difference between das Selbst and das Gleiche. Das Selbst is in certain sense confusing because it promises a difference, but is an in-between difference that ends up being the same. Das Gleiche. What is equal? Extreme agitation and extreme quietness go for hand in hand. A rash change of focus between different tasks, sources of information, and processes characterizes this scatter mode of awareness. Since it also has a low tolerance for boredom, it does not admit the profound idleness that benefits the creative process. We have introduced a second difference between what would be a creative boredom, idleness, and a shallow boredom towards we are going to speak now. Okay, shallow boredom as economic good has us paying attention to this perceptive freedom as a type of resource. We have a capital, there is a limited resource, attention is a limited resource, and it is consequently spent and sometimes is laid to waste. The actual conceptual frame in praxis is modeled in the fashion of the warehouse, the stack-up repository. We are piling up, staking experiences, information. We are staking up images, representations, whatever. Administration of such goods, that goods call for our limited resource for attention. Administration of such goods should be otherwise a main concern. Then, the rising popularity of what are commonly called smart drugs, the nootropics, that promises us to enlarge this pool of resources, this pool of attention, of focus, is just another sign of the spirit of the times. Cognitive enhancers for apparently excelling in intellectual performance are nothing but a matter of delivering more performance, not a better quality performance, but more performance, more leaps between focuses in representation. Han recalls that to a prominent branch in philosophy, to think is hold for a kind of vita activa. And surely there are people eager to put the activity to good use, to make it finally productive. That means exposable to public scrutiny. But Han is not fool in this question, for running or racing does not yield a new gait. It is just accelerated walking. Acquisitive, cumulative attention is though, a false sense of plenitude in which experiences, Han talks about Tätigkeiten, activities, leaps in the focus of our attention that becomes active, are transformed in experience, not in plural, experience, in which experiences are all the same. Well, there is an umlaut like in there. Thank you, Winant. Han talks about Erfahrung, that means experience, but in the sense of a transition, of passing by the experience. Time is but a new sort of space to be filled in. Under the plight, the obligation to be occupied. According to Han, this is a shallow boredom, a weariness, unsettling fatigue. As for materials in physics, that means, in the same sense, like uh, material fatigue in physics, a solipsistic tiredness, says he. The unbearable lightness of being, or willing to be, active on your own. It is the wild boredom. And really believes there is a cultural path that leads from this while to a meanwhile. Idleness, contemplative attention, deep boredom is a peak of relaxation, in his own words, bodily and mentally speaking. We can remember the sleepwalker and the zombie. The sleepwalker had no rest for her body, but the zombie has no rest either for her body or her mind. Deep boredom is then an ecological openness. That means a relation with the mean, with the medium, an age, far from the old immune paradigm represented in the disciplinary society. It is being on your own with, says Han, not just on your own, but on your own with a community based in trust, not in alert or warning or awake attention, but in trust. Trust in whatever turn the world will execute. No warning, no threat, but wondering, inspiring attention, open to wonder. Acquisitive attention has its counterpart in consumptive attention. Consumptive from consumption. Yes, that's the last. I will get to the conclusion. Consumptive comes from sumere. That means to have it all, to apprehend, but to assume intimately. It is an eloquent, says Han, founding, intensive, vivid, inviting, perceptive freedom. And what sort of means has society to endeavor this enterprise? Well, Han says play. Play is at the basis of every cultural institution. We can remember the work from Huizinga, Homo Ludens in 1938. For Han, the very existence of intermediary instances such as these, such as myths, rites, narratives, grant the in-between that is needed for creative deep boredom, the most fundamental type of ocean. For play is the only non-productive, free, trusted, altruistic, moral, rational, that means ruled, and sovereign, capable of um, sorry, capable of being its own sovereign, that an institution or that could have the form of an institution, a free institution today. Thank you. That would be all.
Right. Thank you for your interesting presentation. We have a little bit of time for questions. Does anyone want to? There's a question in the text. Is there anyone who wants to spoken question as well? Oh yeah. Martha, you're probably Pavel. Please go ahead.
Yeah, me again. Again without the camera. Sorry about that. Once more. And thank you for this presentation. It was really interesting, and about the philosopher I know very little about. So thank you twice, I guess. I already wrote my question in the chat, but basically I was wondering whether you have whether you could describe to us very briefly a sort of a historical narrative that I assume accompanies this theory, or in other words, how we got from this disciplinary society to what you've just described. How did we get from well, say 19th century industrial capitalism with all the disciplinary measures that we know to this kind of society that you've just described, or is this something that still has to be done, a sort of a historical narrative to accompany this theory?
No. Well, what Hans says, and I try to present in the slides, though slightly, maybe briefly, is that this type of change, historically speaking, would be a change in modal verbs. I mean, in modal verbs, evidently, thought modal verbs. He says that the main change would be with the rise of the verb kann, können, because can entails a type of possibility that the old modal verbs like should or must, dürfen, müssen of the old disciplinary society would not have the capacity to, I would say, open the possibilities of asking of the subject everything. I mean, when the modal verb can becomes our mental frame, we are once and again asked for develop our best performance. One thing that the old disciplinary society did not count with, because you only had to comply to the norm, to the rule, and that would be the end of it all. I mean, you'd comply, you'd abide to law, and that would be the end. At the end comes the gratification, but with can, the gratification is always postponed.
Sorry, but just to clarify, because I thought this was supposed to be a sort of a symptom of a deeper social and material change. Do you actually see this linguistic shift as the cause of this like huge, seismological shift in the way our society is shaped? Was it like literally caused by a change in our understanding of certain verbs or linguistic structures?
No, not at all. Han would not say, and I think that would be like very bold by him to say that the cause is a linguistic cause. No, I would say that the linguistic change is just a motto, an emblem, maybe the expression of a deeper concern that takes like its form in the language.